Good morning. I'm Elise Jager, and we welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Danbury. We are so glad that you are able to join us this morning, online and in person. Our weekly services are more than just a gathering of our physical bodies. It is the forming of a sacred time that we have been making together for 200 years. As we work to build a more just world, and in that sense of sacredness, along with deep respect, we acknowledge that our physical building is on the traditional land of the Bokuset people. If you are new and joining us online, we invite you to introduce yourself and where you are connecting from in the chat box as you feel comfortable. At the conclusion of today's service, you will have the chance to participate in a breakout group for individual connections and deeper check-ins. If you are new and joining us in person, please stay at the conclusion of the service so that we may greet you. We welcome you, whatever the faith and traditions of your past, whatever your theological stance, whatever your heritage, whoever you are, and whomever you love. We welcome you. You can learn more about UUCD on our website and Facebook page. We encourage you to share our Facebook page and reach out to others who may feel isolated and might benefit from the spiritual connection with our loving community. Today, there will be a pathway to membership class with Reverend Kathleen. The class will start 15 minutes after the service ends. In this workshop, you will learn about Unitarian Universalism, discover what UU Danbury can offer you, and receive information about how to become a member. The Zoom link will be posted in the chat at the end of the service. Again, we welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Danbury, and we welcome all in the spirit of compassion, inquiry, and service. Please join us for the welcome hymn number 361.
Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
I can't help but notice there's something wrong with these front seats here. Welcome. We come together to celebrate who we are in difficult times, as well as in good times. We come together to share the insights that give meaning and hope in our lives, to learn from the wisdom of others that our own understanding might be expanded. We come together to ask questions, to share, to learn, even as chaos and heartache swirl all around us. We gather together, for we know the strength of community, and this we celebrate. Welcome. I invite our service coordinator, Rick Cousins, to come and light our chalice. If online, if you are coming through Zoom and you have a chalice that you would light at home, I invite you to do that at this time. As Rick lights the chalice and will lead us in our unison words of affirmation.
Please join me now in reciting our chalice affirmation, our chalice lighting affirmation. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and justice is its light. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek and speak the truth in love, to help one another and celebrate life.
This is good to be together. Those of you who are participating in Mystery Buddies, I just want to offer you a reminder to pick up a Mystery Buddies packet from me discreetly at some point at your convenience today. Please join me in the children's affirmation. The words are on the screen. We are Unitarian Universalists. We are people with open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands. We care for the earth and each other. This morning's story is about a young real-life girl named Maria Mitchell. Here's a picture of her. She was fascinated by the night sky and grew up to be a famous astronomer. That's someone who studies stars and planets. So I want to invite you to begin setting the imaginative stage for this story by thinking about the night sky. Maybe remembering a time when you have looked up into the dark and seen the stars. Can you picture that? A sky full of stars. Young Maria was full of questions. When she was 2, she would ask, "What? What's this? What's that?" When Maria was 3, she asked, "How? How does this work? How do we know?" When Maria was 4, she asked, "Why? Why does it get dark at night? Why are there stars?" Her parents tried to answer her questions as best they could, but no matter how many answers they had, Maria always had more questions. She asked questions at home, at school, at the Quaker church. She asked questions of everyone she met. Hundreds of questions, thousands of questions, an infinity of questions. And one little girl. Oop. Maria lived long ago with her family on an island. At night, she and her father would climb the stairs up to the top of their house, and then they would take down a ladder and climb a ladder to get to the roof. On the roof, there was a small platform. There's actually had a railing. I think it was up here, actually. There was a small platform. And from the top of the house, Maria could see far out to the sea and far above her to the stars. Here's the night sky that we were picturing earlier. Hundreds of stars, thousands of stars, an infinity of stars, and one little girl. I love the stars, she would say to her father. And they would look through a telescope to see farther into the sky. Then Maria would start to ask questions. Where do stars come from? How old are they? Why do they shine? How many are there? How far away are they? Some questions her father could answer. Some he could not. So Maria set out to find the answers herself. One day, Maria told her father, I want to be an astronomer and study the stars. Her father thought for a moment. He knew that no matter how many good questions a girl had, she could not go to college. In those days, only boys were allowed to go to college. Her father knew there were no women astronomers in America, and he told Maria he would teach her all he knew, and if she studied hard, he believed she could become an astronomer. So she did study hard and read many books and did experiments to get answers to her questions. She discovered a comet and earned awards and honors for her work. She became an astronomer. Many of her ideas about the stars have now been proven true. But Maria was still full of questions. How do we know God exists? How do we know what's true? Why are we here? Some people gave her answers. Some people did not want her to ask those questions anymore. Maria knew that answers to these questions could not be found easily, so she kept asking. She joined the Unitarian Church because she heard there was room for an infinity of answers to an infinity of questions. For the rest of her life, Maria asked, what, how, and why? She became a teacher at the first women's college and taught other people about the stars and about giving girls the opportunity to study and go to college. She taught others to ask questions, to experiment, to think for themselves, and find an infinity of answers to an infinity of questions. Okay, I invited the youth to come back in here because they had already gone to the youth room. Thank you for giving me that, humoring me in that way. It's time for any children and youth who want to go to this morning's religious education programs to do so. We'll sing This Little Light of Mine all together as they and the adults involved in today's programs go.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
I invite you to join me in a time in this community that is a very sacred time. It is a time when we stop recording, when we center ourselves here, when you center yourselves at home, and we share from our hearts those milestones, those deep joys, those burdening sorrows, because this is beloved community. This is where we find strength. This is where we share from our hearts. Let's seek quiet. Not the quiet that's the absence of noise. There will always be noise. But rather like the silence that brings renewal, like the silence that can bring hope, the silence from which love can emerge. Let's pause for a few moments. Listen for the stillness that rests between confusion and complexity in our lives as we hold these milestones. Join me in the silence. Remaining seated and in the spirit of reflection, let's join our voices in hymn number 123, Spirit of Life. Over the past several months, I have introduced you to several characters from J. Ruth Gendler's Book of Qualities. Today, I would introduce you to Doubt and Faith. Doubt camped out in the living room last week. I told him we had too many house guests. Doubt doesn't listen. He keeps saying the same thing again and again and again, and then I would completely forget what I'm trying to tell him. Doubt is demanding and not very generous, but I do appreciate his honesty. Now, Faith lives in the same apartment building as Doubt. And when Faith was out of town, visiting her uncle in the hospital, Doubt fed the cat and watered the asparagus fern. Faith is comfortable with Doubt because she grew up with him. Their mothers are cousins. Faith is not dogmatic about her beliefs like some of her relatives. Her friends fear that Faith is a bit stupid. They whisper that she's naive and that she depends on Doubt to protect her from the meanness of life. But in fact, it's the other way around. It is Faith who protects Doubt from cynicism. This ends the morning reading.
It is now time for our congregational offering. If you are here for the first time, your presence is your gift to us. Online members, please express your generosity by clicking the link posted in the chat to make a donation or pledge. While everyone may not be here in our sacred space at this time, our operating expenses remain the same. Please consider using the Simple Give barcode link, or feel free to mail a check to the UUCD, 24 Clapboard Ridge Road, Danbury. For those of you here in the fellowship hall, we will be passing the collection plate. Please join me in reading the congregational response. In the spirit of compassion and service, we dedicate these, our offerings.
Thank you, Carl. It was beautiful. 11 years ago. Oh, no. No, more than 11 years ago. Gosh, a lot more than 11 years ago, actually. Almost 18 years ago? No, that can't be. A long time ago, I was ordained into Unitarian Universalist ministry. And at my ordination, I received 2 books. I received a Bible, not that exact one, but I received a Bible, and I received a book which on our table is right next to it called Doubt. Both books came from colleagues. Now, having grown up as a Southern Baptist in Oklahoma, I had plenty of Bibles, every version imaginable. So that one was actually shelved and eventually donated. But Doubt, a book dedicated to doubt, I admit I was thrilled. And since you can't really take all of the Southern Baptist out of the girl, I even felt a tiny twinge of giddy guilt. Most people who are familiar with Unitarian Universalism assume that because I grew up around Tulsa, Oklahoma, I must have attended one of our largest congregations in the denomination, All Souls. But that could not be further from the truth. I did see it once. My family and I happened to be church shopping, And we were just coming home from visiting another church, yet another church. And I saw in the distance on a hill this beautiful white church. It looked like a church. And I said, look at that. Let's try that one. Now, there was a very brief moment of silence. And then after that brief moment of silence, my mother's head spun around like Linda Blair in The Exorcist as she looked me in the eye and said in a loud whisper, don't you know, they think Jesus was just a good man. Yeah, I never looked at All Souls again. In fact, I don't think we ever even drove by All Souls again. But I secretly held doubts. I didn't articulate them. I didn't dare articulate them because I was told doubt was an absence of faith, an absence of trust. And I was unaware of the rich, abiding world history of doubt. Throughout history, doubt has come in scholastic questions, cryptic books, novels, astronomy lessons, Inquisition trial reports, treatises on political science, in speeches, and in poetry. Socrates challenged every last conception of life as he knew it, even having the idea of having a conception of it. He was indicted for atheism, but the wording of the indictment suggests that even his accusers did not think him particularly atheistic. They just thought he was disruptive and anti-traditional. Still, there is a reason that he was accused of atheism, and it has everything to do with his chief claim that he knew nothing and yet was wiser than most, since at least he knew that he knew nothing. Socrates counts among those great minds who actually cultivated doubt in the name of truth. The Socratic method is an eternal questioning. To doubt is to question. And that's a part of the free and responsible search for truth and meaning that comes in our fourth principle as Unitarian Universalists. Can I get a UU amen? Oh, that was so pitiful. I'm clearly not in the Southern Baptist Church. On the website of this very congregation is our mission statement. And that mission statement reads in part, we stand as a beacon for independent thought and encourage lifelong spiritual and intellectual exploration. It doesn't say we have it all figured out. It doesn't say this is what we all believe. It says we are a beacon for independent thought. We encourage lifelong spiritual and intellectual exploration. Our focus is the question, not the answer. It's what we encourage our children and youth in our religious education program to do, to question, even if it's not what many of us experienced in other religious communities. But in its most positive, its most honest and humble form, doubting or questioning is so much a part of Unitarian Universalism. We debate, we discuss, and we do it because it's a fundamental part of who we are, of the thought process of Unitarian Universalism. Every belief is questioned. We have a responsibility to question as a way to understand. It's been said that for the members of any religion, to have a few doubts is normal. To have many doubts is a crisis of faith. To have constant doubts is a conversion to Unitarian Universalism. It's interesting to note some of the famous Unitarian and Universalist doubters. third president of our country, Thomas Jefferson, for all his flaws, and we know he was deeply flawed. But it was Jefferson who put together the bill for establishing religious freedom in this country, grounded in the belief that a person's opinions cannot be coerced. It's been posited that this was his great contribution, and he fought for it his entire life. He said, if we had a clean text, one that included only the words of the real Jesus, it would help to conquer bigotry and fanaticism. And so the Jefferson Bible was published. John Adams, a little less of a doubter than Jefferson, but those two had long correspondence where they mutually critiqued the religious. As the second president of this country, Adams signed into law the Treaty of Tripoli. Is anyone familiar with the Treaty of Tripoli? 1797? Okay. Treaty of Tripoli, which declares that, and I'm going to quote, the government of the United States is not, in any sense, founded on the Christian religions and is no way an enemy to Muslims. Further, the United States is not a Christian nation any more than it is a Jewish or Mohammedan nation. End of quote. It was carried unanimously in the Senate. Again, important information that should be widely known. From Doubt, in one of his last letters to Jefferson, this was in 1825, Adams wrote, "We think ourselves possessed, or at least we boast that we are so, of liberty of conscience on all subjects. Yet, how far are we from these exalted privileges, in fact? There exists, I believe, throughout the whole Christian world, a law which makes it blasphemy to deny or doubt the divine inspiration of all the books of the Old and New Testaments. I think such a law a great embarrassment, great obstruction to the improvement of the human mind." Both Adams and Jefferson died on the 4th of July of the following year. Jefferson was 81, Adams was 90. Throughout history, there are left-wing doubters, authoritarian doubters, hated doubters, widely beloved doubters. We come from a long line. We come from a long line of seekers, searchers, doubters. We're in good company. But there's a caveat to this practice of doubt that we embrace. We need to doubt without cynicism. Remember the reading and meeting Faith? Her friends fear that Faith may be a bit stupid. You know, they whisper that she's naive, that she depends on doubt to protect her from the meanness of life, when in fact it's the other way around. It's Faith who protects doubt from cynicism. Cynicism, that general distrust, the ugly mocking and sneering that many of us are familiar with. Doubt without cynicism is protected by our faith. And if that F word makes you uncomfortable, because I know it does make some uncomfortable, and that's okay, substitute the word trust, because that's the kind of faith I'm talking about. I'm talking about trust. Doubt without cynicism is protected by our trust in the goodness of humanity. You might be saying, on this day of all days, you want to talk about the goodness of humanity? Yes. Because even when war rages and peace seems a distant dream, there is an inspiring goodness to be found. Rabbi Jonathan Markowitz and his wife, Elka, in Kyiv. They're Israeli citizens, although they have lived in Kyiv for many years. But as Israeli citizens, they had an opportunity to leave Ukraine. just a few days ago. They had an opportunity to leave, but they made the decision to turn their synagogue into a shelter for the Jews who cannot flee because they are poor, because they are elderly, because they are ill. They cannot flee. They have prepared 50 mattresses and 6 tons of food. One of their congregants is 104 years old. She survived the Holocaust, and she begged them not to abandon her and others like her. There is goodness. Doubt without cynicism is protected by our faith, our trust in the goodness of humanity, in the strength of community. It is what will help us realize the transformative power of something bigger than just our congregation, bigger than just any, when we're willing to emerge from the comfort of our insulation, when we're willing to work with others who may not have the same beliefs, but they share the same values, like the Markowitzes. Eboo Patel. I wonder how many, I hope some have heard of Eboo Patel. Ah, I see one hand. Eboo Patel, remember the name. An American Muslim, he's the founder and executive director of the Interfaith Youth Corps. He has been working with young people for many, many years, working to bring people together of differing faiths, of no faith. And he said something rather profound on this topic of working with people who may not share beliefs, but who share values. He said we must choose between interfaith, coming together, and internihilism. Now, while I'm convinced that he's spot on, I believe that's going to require our doubting, that is so much a part of who we are, to assume a posture of humility. It's going to require our doubting to assume a posture of graciousness. It's something I witnessed several years ago on the Green in New Haven, Connecticut. I was participating in a Yale humanist community secular solstice event. I was serving on the board at the time of the Yale humanist community. And we had this event on the town green with the purpose of celebrating the changing of seasons and the importance of creating light and warmth of compassion in the world. But it was advertised and promoted as a secular solstice event. Now, what was so inspiring about this event was that, in fact, at the Yale humanist community, there were members from a diversity of religious beliefs as well as no religious beliefs. But the Lutheran pastor of downtown New Haven was present at the secular solstice event, and the local Vineyard pastor. If you're not familiar with the Vineyard Church, it is an evangelical Christian church. Pastor Matt was there. Pastor Matt led the opening words. And in his words, he praised the partnership of the Yale humanist community and the other religious communities in New Haven. He praised that partnership because he said it widened the possibility of community for all New Haven residents. We do not share the same theology, I guarantee you that. Pastor Matt and I would probably find ourselves on very opposite ends of the theological spectrum, but we share values. We share the values of community, of hospitality, and compassion. Compassion for all. And while we Unitarian Universalists and we in this congregation cherish our capacity and our willingness to doubt with the best of them, we must know that our vision, our mission will not be realized if we endeavor to do our work alone. If we endeavor to only do it with those who think exactly like us. And I know we often say, well, I'm looking for like-minded people. But if all we look for are those who think exactly like us on every single issue, that mission will not be lived. It will not be lived fully. We are at a time in the history, not only of our country, but of the world, where the problems to be solved need cooperation and need collaboration. And I know that sounds like Pollyanna, and that's hope that we can't realize. No, it's the only thing that has ever worked. We are at a difficult and tumultuous time, but it's not unlike other times in the history of our nation and in the history of the world. There have been other times when we have been divided, when the divide of people of differing religious beliefs, of different ethnicities, has become so dangerously deep. And in some ways, I understand, I know, in some ways it's easier to just band together with people that are just like us. It's comforting. It's so much easier. And yet it's exactly in times like these, when we are called by all those who've come before us, Unitarians, Universalists, great religious leaders, perhaps even some of your ancestors, and called by our very best selves, to be willing to engage with those not exactly like us, but those who hold our shared values. Engage with those who will walk through those doors, who have walked through those doors. They have walked through those doors in recent weeks, looking for community. But they don't think exactly like you, or perhaps like me, on every issue, and they don't offer the same answers as you, or perhaps me, to every question. Engage with those for whom the values of environmental stewardship, equality, alleviating poverty and homelessness and hunger are places where we can act together, where we can come together and act for the common good. You know, some of the most sacred and singular texts from different religious and ethical perspectives show those shared values, speak of those shared values, from the Torah and the Quran to the writings of Carl Sagan and the Guru Granth Sahib. So being able to support one another on that search for truth and meaning, encouraging each other to question and doubt as part of that search, it comes with a challenge. The challenge of not falling into cynicism, not creating emotional barriers that will drive us to cling so fiercely to our truth, to our belief, to our way, that we become unable to live humbly and gracefully in the midst of so many perspectives and experiences. That white UU church on the hill, that All Souls, it has 1,800 members as of today. It has a traditional Sunday service, not unlike ours, and it also has a specifically humanist Sunday service. And it even has a Pentecostal bishop, Carlton Pearson, if anybody is familiar, as an affiliate minister. I encourage, I challenge you to doubt, to question, to seek, but don't become cynical. Nurture a character of humility and graciousness while opening yourself to the cooperative and collaborative engagement with others. Let's find common ground of shared values in order to make a positive impact on Danbury, on Connecticut, on our nation. There is a plethora of social justice issues facing us today. We will not make an impact by ourselves. Let's be like Maria Mitchell, on the roof, standing on the roof full of questions, knowing that the answers to some of our questions cannot be found easily, but continuing to ask, knowing that here in this beloved community, it is here that there is room for an infinity of answers to an infinity of questions. The author of Doubt, Jennifer Hecht, says the religions are all beautiful and horrible, filled with feasts, sacrifices, miracles, wars, songs, lamentations, stained glass, onion matzahs, and intense communal joy. The religions have also been the energy behind much generosity, compassion, and bravery. The story of doubt, however, has all this too. It also has a relationship to truth that is rigorous, that is sober, and when necessary, resigned. And it prizes this rigorous approach to truth about the delights of belief. Doubt has its own version of comforts and challenges. Devote yourself to wisdom, to self-knowledge, to friends, to family, and give some attention to community. Know that none of it brings happiness all that consistently. It's best to stay agile, to keep an open mind. As our opening hymn said, don't be afraid of some change. Because if you live long enough, you will likely find yourself believing something you'd never believe. You thought you would never believe today, if you are open. Or perhaps something you never thought you would disbelieve. And in a funny way, the one thing you can really count on is doubt. Open yourself with humility and graciousness. Don't be afraid of change, expect it. We believe in life and in the strength of love, and we have found a joy being together, and in our search for peace, maybe we'll finally see, even to question, truly is an answer. And may it be so.
as we approach the end of our service, please join me in reciting the words of our chalice extinguishing. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, and a fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world until we are together again. Please join me now for the hymn of celebration. We laugh, we cry.
We need to feel there's something here to wish
From Michael Schuler, cherish your doubts, for doubt is the servant of truth. Question your convictions, for beliefs held too tightly strangle the mind. But in your inner rooms of doubt, in your inner rooms of inquiry and suspicion, let there be a corner reserved for trust. For without trust, there is no space for communities to gather or for friendship to be forged. Indeed, this is the small corner where we connect, where we trust, where we reconnect with each other. Shalom. Salam. Amen. Blessed be to each and all, here and beyond. Namaste.